This is the CrowdCrux Crowdfunding Podcast with Sal Briggman, where we cover everything you need to know to launch a successful crowdfunding campaign. We speak with proven entrepreneurs who've raised money from the crowd and want to teach you how to do the same. Stay tuned because we're about to reveal how to launch your dream project. With your host, Sal Briggman.
Before we get started with this podcast episode, I want to take a second to introduce you to my friends at Fulfillrite. If you need help shipping out your Kickstarter or Indiegogo perks or rewards, Fulfillrite is the absolute best company for you. I've been working with them for a while and I can vouch for their services. They make it dead simple and take all of the headache out of shipping out all of those boxes, all of those orders to your backers and your customers. If you want to check them out, go to fulfillrite.com at fulfillrite.com. Hey guys, welcome back to the Crowdfunding Demystified podcast. My name is Salvador Briggman. Welcome. Today we're going to be talking board games. We're going to be talking tabletop games. Actually, the entrepreneur that I brought on today, after the show aired, she corrected me that I was using the term board game when it actually, her Kickstarter campaign, the one that she's working on, which has raised $364,000, which is incredible. And you know, it's had over 3,000 backers, so a really big deal. She corrected me that it's actually tabletop. It's a tabletop game, not a board game. So apologize, guys, if I sometimes misuse the terminology, or sometimes, you know, I'm just not fully aware of the right terminology to use. But regardless, I think you're going to really like today's episode because we get into something that I think is the crux of a lot of successful games and a lot of successful crowdfunding campaigns, which is community. So we talk a bit about community and specifically how that plays into a successfully funded project. How do you actually create a community around your game, around your new product, your gadget, your gizmo? If you're doing something else like an author's publishing project, how do you create a community around that? How is it that they were able to? And I think another big topic, which it can plague many different projects, is this concept of shipping. And how do you maximize your reward costs, your shipping, and all of that, particularly when it comes to things like actually getting the backers to pay for shipping? How do you do that on Kickstarter in a smart way? So we talk a little bit about that. We also get into some other stuff like how does this team, which has literally done 19 projects, they've created 19 projects on Kickstarter, how do they do their marketing? How do they set goals? All of these things, these components behind this really great indie publisher, we get into that. And finally, for you out there in the audience, if you want to apply this to your project, how can you do that? How can you actually make it so that you have a successful campaign? And it's some of the other actually really interesting questions, like do you need to be in the video, the pitch video? So I think this is a pretty good episode. I think you guys are going to like it. Before we get into this, I just really want to quickly mention, if you are interested in getting access to my weekly newsletter, you want to hop onto that newsletter, you want to be notified when I come out with new content, new videos, new blog posts, new podcasts, new stuff that I'm doing, you can go to crowdcrux.com/subscribe. That is crowdcrux.com/subscribe. Just enter your name and email, and I'll start sending you my weekly newsletter when I come out with it. Those are also live. Like I write them, you know, every week or whenever I get a chance, and I put in my new content and some also like some personal announcements and such. The other thing is, if you've been listening to the show, you've liked some of the other episodes I've been putting out, and you want to get access to a step-by-step program, a step-by-step formula for getting your project funded. I'm not just talking about board games. I'm talking about literally any category on Kickstarter. The following, the how-to of how do you get attention, how do you convert that into backers, how do you create community, how do you essentially have a successful crowdfunding campaign? And this is the culmination of the last 6 years for me of learning about these projects, working on projects, learning sort of the engine behind a successful campaign. I took all of that information, I digested it, I made it really simple, and I put that into the Kickstarter launch formula. So this is a guide which is available paperback on Amazon, and it also has an Audible version. So if you like listening to podcasts, chances are you might also like the Audible version. So if you're interested in that, you can go to crowdcrux.com/Kickstarter Kickstarter Audio. That is crowdcrux.com/Kickstarter Audio. And that link will take you to the Audible version of the Kickstarter launch formula. And also, if you're interested, you can get a free copy of the Kickstarter launch formula. All you got to do is sign up for a free 30-day trial of Audible. And if you don't like it for whatever reason, you can cancel that trial, in 7 days, 5 days, whatever. And you'll still be able to keep the copy of the Kickstarter launch formula. So it's like a win-win deal, in my opinion. So I think you're going to like that book. And also, I think you're going to really enjoy today's podcast episode. Thank you so much for joining me here today. And it's coming up right after this. Hey guys, welcome back to the Crowdfunding Demystified podcast. I have a really exciting guest for you today, a project creator that has made more than 19 projects on Kickstarter. Their current campaign has raised over $300,000. And right now with me, I have Jody Black, the CEO of Pinnacle Entertainment Group, sort of the group behind these different gaming projects. Jody, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me, Sal. I'm excited to be here.
Me too. Wow, you guys have been working hard. We're getting together lots of different projects here. It looks like when actually did you start on Kickstarter, like raising money with these projects?
Okay, well, Pinnacle started with Deadlands Noir, and that is a pretty cool setting for us. Our world of Deadlands is basically a Western setting, but it's twisted with the elements of the supernatural. And our game is a role-playing game, a tabletop role-playing game. So for Deadlands Noir, we were taking that weird West, but putting it into like the gritty pulp, not so much pulp, but into the gritty detective genre of the noir, and I can't say noir very well. People have been making fun of me for it for 10 years. But, be able to put it into that kind of genre. So since we were taking it with such a new direction, we said, this is a perfect opportunity to try out Kickstarter. And it was a new opportunity for Pinnacle at the time. And that was before I was involved in Kickstarters for Pinnacle. I was just working as an editor at that time. Mm-hmm. So but I had some experience in fundraising in general. So
what year was that when you guys launched your first project?
I would have to look it up. I think it was 2012, 2013, something like that.
Okay. That's really when Kickstarter was started, like first breaking out of the mold and starting to get some of these larger projects and more media attention. That's also when I got into crowdfunding as well.
Yeah, so it was June 2012. And I remember it specifically more around Christmas because that's when I was heavily involved in the editing. So that's why that was kind of, fitting into my time period personally. But for June 2012, it was an amazing project. It went way bigger than we expected at Pinnacle. And that was just what I heard kind of through the grapevine at the time working as a contractor. But it was just so cool to see the numbers tick up, to see all the support that we were getting for taking that kind of tried and true genre for Pinnacle of the Weird West and then trying it in this detective area for kind of the 1920s, 30s, Depression era. Is like, wow, how are we, how big a reaction could this possibly have gotten?
Yeah.
And that was just the very first project. So
that's insane. I think too, like you can actually connect with other people out there who are as enthusiastic about that era or about board games, like this really niche game that maybe like in the mainstream, you might get lost amongst like larger titles, but you can actually connect online now with a bunch of people out there that are as enthusiastic. So like, what was your role with these different projects? Like, I know that, as you probably are very organized, as a COO, you're very good at project management, I assume. Like, but what was your role with these different campaigns?
So it sort of grew over the years. As an editor, I was always kind of detail oriented in the first place. And like I said, I had some experience in fundraising, specifically nonprofits. And there is a lot more crossover with nonprofits and Kickstarter than you might expect.
Really?
So, and a lot of the elements that hold true are simply delivering on what you say you're going to do and having that personal connection with the people that are giving you the money. In Kickstarter, you're giving them a product. You're not usually a nonprofit, but at the same time, they have a personal connection to what you're doing, even if what you're giving them is a physical book to be able to play a game, which is what we do for the most part. So, that and you're making it a personal connection each time you're talking to people about your project online as a chat function, responding to messages. You just always keep in mind that those are people who are sending you the messages, and just treat them like people. So
Definitely.
yeah, so that I think, people keep telling us that we're such a great company, and they like supporting us because they love our company and they love the people that we are. But I feel like we're just gamers like you. We're just people like you, and we're treating you like people.
We're all
So
geeks here. Yeah.
exactly. We are all just as geeky as you, and trust me, we can go off on our favorite geek, subjects too.
Yeah.
So
Definitely. I think it's easy to forget that. Like you think of like followers or you think of customers, and it's almost like this wall is between you and the other person. It's almost like reaching out to other people as human beings and treating them as such, and giving them that attention, whether it's replying to comments and everything. What's been for you like your favorite part of this whole process? Because you've worked on a lot of the projects now. Like what have you enjoyed most about doing this?
well, what I love the most is seeing just the creativity of our authors and what we're able to put out there, and be able to say, okay, well, here's a war setting, which might not be so appealing to me personally. I've never had experience in military, but but then you say, okay, but it's set during the period of Rome, and you're a soldier in Rome, and I'm like, oh gosh, well, hey. Love the Greek mythology, and I, want to see more about that. So that's really cool. Or East Texas University, where you're a student on a college campus and you're fighting the supernatural. Or as you can tell, we do a lot of fighting the supernatural. Um, we did Rifts for Savage Worlds, which is to date our biggest project, that was funded at over $400,000. We were able to get the rights to Palladium Rift's game and translate it into our rule system. And those backers, oh my gosh, they just responded so enthusiastically. And it was just a wild ride, and it's like, this is such a cool setting and we love your setting. And they were saying, well, yeah, we like it too. So that, it's so creative, this industry. And that's what I think keeps drawing me back to the different projects. It's like I'm dealing with a different, genre every single day.
It's really exciting.
And at the same time, these Kickstarters let us do really cool stuff that we want to do. So it's not just the book. It's a soundtrack. It's a map. It's a cool character sheet. It's miniatures. It's all these other products that you can use to help play your game that we couldn't do if we weren't on Kickstarter.
It's almost like expanding the universe in a sense, with all these different things that you're offering. And I think, a lot of the times as creators, like we throw around that word community, but it's really actually deeply embedded into Kickstarter and deeply embedded, I think, into the way that we sort of rally around these projects and get really excited about them and like fanatical about them. Maybe you could talk a little bit about that, sort of your thoughts on how you've been able to build such a fantastic community over the years and how that's contributed to the success that you've had thus far on Kickstarter.
Yeah, so we have been pretty fortunate that we've been around with our game system since 2003. So 15 years now, we've had the game out there. And with the advent of the internet, of course, we've just, been able to connect online. We specifically have a great group of people in Facebook. We have an official group there. We have forums on our own website that we are able to connect with. We meet people at conventions. We get to talk to them. We're on Twitter. We're on G+, for a little while longer anyways. And, we just get to have so many conversations with people and meet people all around the world. And that has really grown for us. In fact, we've been translated into, I think it's 8 different languages.
Wow.
Yes.
That's impressive.
Yeah. Yes, it is. It is. And that's, it doesn't happen overnight. These are little baby steps. These are people inviting us to be part of their space because they like what we're doing. And we say, well, yeah, you're cool too. So let's talk about that. Or yeah, sure. Let's go to that space and talk about what you're doing there.
So it's almost all is it all like little discussions, I guess, about the different games that you have out, or is it discussions about gaming in general? Like what were people usually talking about in these communities?
Yeah, so it is discussing about gaming in general. People will share the memes and comment on those like they'll do for any, game system, really. But also we'll talk specifically about our game rules. And if somebody has a question, I feel like our community stands out because it's a very welcoming community. You won't find flame wars anywhere on our communities because we just don't allow it. We say there's no reason to bring anybody down by what they've posted. Sorry?
Yeah, negativity and just bringing that into the community is never a good thing, I think.
Yeah, and I mean, you can have a different opinion, but don't attack them for theirs. So, there's a difference between debate and flame war, and we just don't let flame wars happen. So,
it's really hard to, yeah. I think I also run an online forum. It's really hard from a moderation standpoint because once you start to get into other groups, like you have a Facebook group, you have an online forum, you have all these places where discussions are happening. It's very difficult to like keep that all together and manage that.
It is, and we've been fortunate. So my husband started with the company here before I did, and he is the rules guru. He's the one who answers all of the questions about our rules. Clint Black, not the country music singer, by the way, but anyways, he kind of got it started by running the forums, and then that just kind of spilled over to all of our other communities. Being able to say, okay, these are the forum rules. You can discuss religion if it's part of the game, but we're not interested in hearing about your religion in modern day terms.
Yeah.
That's for other places, that's not part of our game. Same thing for politics. Those are the two most divisive things out there. So, again, politics in game are fine. We also keep a strict PG-13 rating on our official products. And then we have licensees that create their own products, and we like to see that they follow that as much as they can, but they're their own companies. They can do what they want.
So in the time that you've invested in building these communities and really curating them and making sure it's a positive environment, like you said, how has that contributed to actually getting these projects funded? Like, have you found that to be the silver bullet, if you will, for your campaigns? Maybe you could share with listeners a little bit about the role the community has played in getting these projects funded.
Oh, it's absolutely how we're doing so well with this particular Kickstarter. The current Kickstarter is for the Savage Worlds Adventure Edition, which is for our newest edition of our core game rules. So we don't have a specific genre that we're targeting this time. It's not the Weird Western world or the modern day campus of college students. It's just the core rules. And with these rules, you can homebrew and play any game that you can imagine. Well, with that kind of non-restricted genre, other than the fact that it is a tabletop role-playing game, how do you target your audience other than that kind of demographic? So, with this type of Kickstarter, we kind of did a little bit of an experiment, and we said, we've got these great communities. We have these translator companies. We have 100 or more, a little bit over 100 licensee companies who are making products using our game rules. Let's ask them to help us promote this Kickstarter. And also, let's ask our fans, the people in these communities online. They're our friends. Ask them to help us share the news to all the people who've ever played our game to say, hey, there's a new edition out there, and we think you're going to get some pretty cool stuff from this campaign.
So is this what you call cooperative marketing, that sort of term I think that you guys have coined?
Yeah, it's not us. I've heard that from other people before us. But yes, that is cooperative marketing at the best, because not only are we saying to our licensing partners, yes, you should, please help us spread the news about our product, but we're also going to show how cool your product is. In our Kickstarter, we're showing off 2 settings each day, and a setting is a world from one of these other licensees. So each day we're showing off a licensee setting and saying, hey, you're going to get a jump start from these guys, and it's going to be in a bundle. And in that jump start, it'll be 8 to 12 pages, maybe even more, of playable material. It's just enough information to get you interested in their setting. Just one little adventure that you can play using our core rules. And if you like it, please go out there and buy their stuff. So they're getting access to all of these customers who have backed our Kickstarter, because they're going to have their product handed to them on a silver platter. but also, all of our backers are coming to us because these other companies are going out to their customers and saying, you're going to need these new core rules.
I had to interrupt this podcast episode because I want to introduce you to my friends at The Gadget Flow. Their product discovery platform reaches 22 million people per month. They've helped more than 5,000 crowdfunding campaigns thus far, and they have a social media following of more than 700,000 followers. If you want to gain access to their marketplace and list your own product, you can go to thegadgetflow.com/submit and list your project today. Is that like as an update, or is that on the campaign page, or do you share that like announcement on social media? How do you let people know about that?
Yeah, so we are updating the Kickstarter page every single day. And one downside that we have learned in this Kickstarter is that there is a character limit to your Kickstarter page. We actually had to move our Jumpstart announcements. We're still announcing them on the page every day, but the entire list of our licensees that are participating, at this point, we've got more than 30. We've had to move that to our website. Yes. Because we ran out of characters. So now every time we list a stretch goal, we have to edit out something else on the main page of the Kickstarter. We might have to move. I don't know. We'll just keep, we've got 10 days left. So we're just going to keep editing things in and out as we see fit. But yeah, we are, it's important to us that we keep putting the jump starts out there and keep promoting that, because that shows just how flexible our game is, how diverse our community is, just all the different things that this game can handle.
Totally.
And at the same time, these guys are doing a great job for us.
I think the other thing that does sort of as like a side effect is when you have a reason to share your page, it keeps returning your backers to that page, and sort of it maintains the interest for the project, and you're seeing how much better it's doing, and it gets really exciting. Whereas if you don't really have then another reason to continue to share your page, if like you already made this one announcement, it's like, well, that's it. Versus you're releasing new stuff or making new announcements, it keeps people's attention and keeps them tuned in. So I think that's a really interesting tip. One of the other things I want to ask you about is, since you've done so many projects on Kickstarter, I'm sure that you're very familiar with the whole shipping, reward fulfillment, and logistics side of the equation. And I think that's actually when a brand is built, is when you make good on your promises, as you said, like with nonprofit fundraising and that kind of stuff. Could you tell us a little bit about what you've learned about shipping, the role of that, and any advice you have on that point?
Absolutely. It is. I mean, I like to tell people it begins and ends with shipping. Surely you've got a product, you have an idea about why you're coming to Kickstarter or any crowdfunding platform to begin with. But, it all begins and ends with shipping. If you don't know how you're getting it to people, there's no reason for you to be even having your Kickstarter out there, because it's just not going to work. You have to have all of those logistics figured out. And for some of them, we don't. We know at this point kind of what the maximum is that we're going to charge for our shipping to our biggest locations. Like we have EU-friendly, Canadian-friendly, and Australian-friendly shipping. We ship to regional depots. We have a way that we're going to do that. And we have ways that we're looking into to make that better for the future. But it's just never going to be a precise science, because you're not shipping for 6 months out, for us at least. So, we've got a maximum that we'll charge, because we know that we can take this much of a hit on it, and we almost always do, but, we can take, what I'm saying? So you have to kind of finagle out how you're going to get to them, how much of a hit you're going to do, and then plan out how much that weight is, how big is that package, how much is it going to cost to get them to these biggest locations. And then also don't take the money for the shipping in the Kickstarter. Get it in the Pledge Manager afterwards. And we are big fans of pledgemanager.com, by the way. They're good people and they do a good product for us. So, go with the Pledge Manager route. That way you're not getting a double dip on the shipping money that you're collecting. There's ways.
Also, on that point, what is it that you mean when you say avoiding the double dip of transaction fees on shipping costs that you collect? That was one of the realizations that you had that you sent over. I was just kind of curious what you meant by that.
Oh, okay. So Kickstarter takes a certain percentage of the money that you raise on Kickstarter, right?
Yep.
And then you send everything over to the pledge manager, and any additional transactions also take, another little, dip of money out of that, because it's like any kind of credit card, right?
Yeah.
So you're basically processing the credit card. Well, if you are processing the credit card for the
Shipping
initial
cost.
Kickstarter payment, yeah, it's going to be a lot higher from Kickstarter. And that has changed over the years, and it keeps creeping up. And we understand why, because Kickstarter is such a huge marketing machine. That's why we use it. At this point, we could, print straight to release, but why, when we're getting such a big marketing push out of it? We actually have tried doing that, and our sales are just nowhere near as good. So we have to do a Kickstarter or something similar to be able to get the same kind of reach on our sales. And that could be a whole other, episode. But anyways, so we've got to do Kickstarter for the marketing. If we're taking the money out for shipping on the first part, and then later they want to add something to their package, well, we also have to charge them for the additional shipping. So they're not just paying for shipping once and taking out a large chunk of the money. Then they're paying for shipping again. They're taking out another little chunk of the money out.
Yeah, I see.
And between it all, you're losing more and more money towards the shipping cost that you're already probably taking a hit on.
That's really interesting. That's also, I think, a problem that hasn't been brought up too much by creators. And that can really add up. Definitely, I can see, especially if you have like 3,000 backers, you have 4,000 backers, that's going to really quickly eat up costs. So I think that's a really good point.
Yeah. And also, I think a lot of people they don't do the research. They just know what they've paid for shipping in the past. So if you order from big companies like Amazon or Walmart or, whatever the equivalent would be overseas, you're not paying the full price of the shipping. You're paying what their price is. And if you've got Amazon Prime, you've got this free shipping deal worked out because you're paying extra for the service. You're not seeing an accurate portrayal of what those shipping costs are. And if you're a small indie, company like us, I mean, we're not as small as some, but we're still pretty small. We can't afford to do Amazon shipping. So we have to charge you what it actually costs. And then even then, if we're taking a hit, we're taking the hit on the production side. Mm-hmm. So, we can kind of balance that stuff out because we've got that experience. But my advice to newer companies is do not take the hit on the shipping. Be upfront with your people and say, look, here's the link to the United States Postal Service website, and have them do the calculations for themselves. Yeah. It's expensive.
It's very, very much more transparent, I think. Also, I think you're very clear about sort of your approach here. I think as well, like you're in a very unique position because you have been around on Kickstarter for so long. Since really the early days when it's just starting to get more and more popular. And I think there's still that question, I think, in many board gamers' minds is like, is Kickstarter still working? Like, is this something that is still a viable option for an indie creator? They've never done a project. Like, you have, I think, a little bit of a leg up because you already have this existing community, and like you haven't spent any money on advertising for this recent project, which is incredible. You raised over 300,000. You're still raising money for Savage Worlds Adventure Edition, but for the indie creator, what are your thoughts there? Is Kickstarter still the best route? Should they be looking elsewhere? What are your thoughts on that?
I think that it is still viable, but I think that you have to do your homework for it. You can't just say, hey guys, I have this idea, and sit in front of your webcam and ramble for about 15 minutes and upload it. You have to do your homework, and you really have to study how Kickstarter works. And if you don't know what's going on, then talk to people who do, and some of that is just good business practices. You are starting a business if you are asking people for money for a product, whether you think this is just going to be a side thing for you or not. You're a sole proprietor. This is a business. Before you are delivering on a fan product, this is a business that you are starting, and you need to come at it with a business plan. And that means, going at it with your research intact. So I think that that's where people fall down, is that they didn't do the research. Mm-hmm. And, you've got lots of great tips. I've been following your blog for quite some time.
Oh, thank you.
So, so there's a lot of good stuff that's out there and easy to access. And you can be self-educated, but you do have to put that kind of time in. At the same time, you also have to be rather timely with it. If you've got a really cool idea, you do have to be the first person to do it. And if other people jump on that before you do, then it's not going to work for you.
Yeah.
So another Kickstarter that I've run is for Carolina Game Tables. That's another company that I have with my husband. And we did the first dining game table Kickstarter. So it went really well. We funded the first day. It was not $1 million Kickstarter, and that's okay because we got what we needed to start our company. The second time around, we did our marketing. I've definitely done my homework, but the Kickstarter itself did not fund, and we ended up canceling it. We still consider that a successful Kickstarter because the lesson there was don't do this product. That second product was for a cabinet that transformed into a table. And it was better for like smaller living rooms and dining rooms and that kind of thing. So if you wanted to have a game table but not have it out all the time, anyways, it doesn't matter.
I love that.
The price point was, it was a cool idea. And everybody who looked at it, all the 1,000 people who signed up for our newsletter because they saw it, the prototypes and stuff, they loved it, but they didn't love it enough to plunk down $3,000. And that's
the lesson. I think it's also like one of those things, they have that saying, like, you should fail forwards. You should always be looking for the lesson, not necessarily saying this is like a huge failure in my life, but this is something I learned. Oh, okay, now I'm not going to waste the next 4 years of my life trying to create a business out of this table or trying to create a business out of this idea or this game or whatever. And I go on to my next thing,
Exactly.
Find success
It's just one step. And I think people who make so much of their identity part of that one Kickstarter, that's going to be a problem for you on down the road. You've got to identify that as being just one step of the creative process. And for us, it meant we're not putting the manufacturing cost into that. We actually spent a lot less money to fail by putting it out on Kickstarter than we would have if we had built the manufacturing templates and
gotten inventory. Yeah.
Yes. So we were fine. We were so fine with just canceling it and move on. I mean, our egos took a blow, but those are easy to fix.
A glass of wine, you'll be over that.
That's right.
I'm speaking to the crowdfunders in the audience who have already launched a Kickstarter campaign, or have actually even successfully run a campaign. And the reason is, I think you will understand this pain point most. And that is, when you finally do raise money on Kickstarter or Indiegogo, the hardest part is not collecting the cash. The hardest part is shipping out all of those perks and rewards to your backers. It is a nightmare, my friends. It's a lot of spreadsheets, it's a lot of headache, and it's a lot of stress. That's why I recommend BackerKit. If you have not heard of BackerKit, they help you collect surveys, they help you collect data, and the entire fulfillment process is just so much easier and so many less spreadsheets when you use their software. You can check them out at backerkit.com and use CrowdCrux for a special discount. I did want to ask you about, your whole process behind goal setting, because I think you can really easily see you guys are pretty good at that, being able to pull off projects. But one question I had personally was, I have a lot of students of mine that come to me and they say, hey, Sal, like, I really want to do a Kickstarter campaign, but I'm afraid of appearing on camera. And one of the things I noticed with your recent project is it's pretty much like a trailer for the project. You personally don't appear on camera. What are your thoughts on, do board game creators need to appear on camera in order to have a successful game? Is that something that's maybe of the past? Or how do you actually then generate trust with the community?
I think it's something of the past. Okay, so if you don't have any kind of credentials, then maybe, but you want to show that you are smart as a business person and you think you're good on camera and could present a good business background, then yeah, maybe that would be a good stroke to be on camera, to show yourself in a successful business setting and say, I'm a good project manager, that's why I'm doing this, then maybe that would work. But really for board games in particular, because the board game market is so very competitive, I think the product is really what's selling, and that's not the person. So you need to do the video about the product. You want to show the product in gameplay, maybe, but you're going to discuss that anyways in your Kickstarter page. Show what the themes, the thematic elements are. If it's a skirmish game, then, you can show that in 5 seconds with just a couple of miniatures on a board and pan over. You're done. They get the idea. You don't need to actually show 5 minutes or explain the rules or everything,
Yeah. It's enough to just basically show that you can pull off this game, has attractive artwork. You get a sense of the theme, the story. That's what people are there for, it seems more so. So last question I had for you here was on the subject of goal setting, because in order to pull off something, you have to be diligent about actually going out there and taking the steps necessary to pull this off. I think there are a lot of creative people, very incredibly brilliant ideas, but they don't have the ability to set goals and to, more importantly, convince people to buy into that vision. What are your thoughts on the subject of goal setting, and how do you actually structure that with your projects?
Okay, so first of all, you've got to know what your initial goal is, just to be able to get the product off the ground. That's a science kind of in itself. I don't think there is a good magic formula that fits everybody. But, and then you've got to consider, okay, well, you want to be able to do this, this, and this. Well, you would need to be able to deliver on those. That might mean additional weight and packaging if you're offering any physical items, as well as those production costs. That all of that is money, for shipping. Again, it's all comes back to that darn shipping thing.
Yeah.
You will make or break your Kickstarter on the shipping. And then, if you're going to do digital items, that takes time to create and customer service to distribute and maintain. That's all money involved. It's not just pixels. People will get that impression. And it's like, no, we've released a free product during this Kickstarter just to highlight some of our rules, and we've edited it 3 times already. I can't even tell you how many person hours that's been. It's all in the name of promotion, so it's worth it. But, this is time. Time is money. So goal setting is important because you need to structure what's going to happen when. And even if you don't have a very strategic plan figured out, you need to at least have kind of the overall idea going forward. And when you're going to hit kind of the high points of your campaign and when you need to maybe do more of a push.
Well said. I think the other point here would be, if you're not good at this, find someone like Jody. Find someone who has attention to detail. Because I think for my own personality and such, I'm not so much I don't like planning and the whole attention to detail thing, and very organized. And I'm very ready, fire, aim kind of person. So maybe even just partnering with someone, who has that, can really help accelerate your project there.
Yeah, remind me to sit down and play a Euro style board game with you. I think I'll win.
Probably. Yeah, probably. Well, this has been awesome. Thank you for coming on the show and sharing so many incredible tips, advice. You guys are definitely one of the pillars of the community in the board game space, I think. You've had so many successes, learned so much, I imagine, over the years. So I appreciate you spending some time here with us. And also, where can people go and learn more about your most recent project? It still has 9 days to go.
Okay, well, first of all, you can always find out more about us and everything we're doing. Our company is called Pinnacle Entertainment Group. So our website is peginc.com. So PEGINC.com. And then, of course, if you're looking us up on the web, just Google Savage Worlds. That is our core game product. So Savage Worlds is just, there's a lot of material out there. I'm sure if you Google Savage Worlds Kickstarter, it's the first thing that comes up, because that's what I find. The new edition is called the Adventure Edition, and the hashtag for that has been SWADE, SWADE. Savage Worlds Adventure Edition. So if you want to do hashtag SWADE or Google Savage Worlds or go to peginc.com, you're going to find out lots of information about us.
Awesome. Thank you for coming on the show, and I'll have to watch your progress, and maybe we'll have you back.
All right. Thanks, Sal.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Crowdfunding Demystified podcast. Again, my name is Salvador Briggman. Hope you got a ton of value out of today's episode. I certainly learned a lot, particularly on the shipping side of the equation, when it comes to transaction costs, when it comes to how do you actually set and achieve goals, and also how do you work with other people using this term cooperative marketing in order to sort of get out of the spammy, pushy kind of marketing, but instead work with other people to promote your game, to promote your Kickstarter campaign, or whatever kind of project you're trying to raise money for with crowdfunding. So a lot of great information. I appreciate you. I really do value your time. Thank you so much. If you also value your time, you've been gearing up to the launch of a campaign, you've been listening to some of my different podcasts, you're like, okay, this is great. I'm getting some good information. Maybe I've looked on Google, I've come across like 1 or 2 articles, but I really want something comprehensive. I want a comprehensive step-by-step blueprint for launching a campaign. Like, can you literally just boil this down into a simple formula for me to follow? Well, I have a great answer to that question. Basically, for the last 6 years, I've been working on a book called The Kickstarter Launch Formula. And I've put into this all of my findings when it comes to the techniques and the strategies that work in order to get a campaign successfully funded on Kickstarter or on Indiegogo. I also go into the comparison between those. We go into stuff like how do you actually build a crowd? How do you do the pre-launch? How do you get attention? How do you maintain momentum? All that kind of stuff I talk about on the Kickstarter launch formula. And if you're interested, you can get a copy for free. All you have to do is go to this link, crowdcrux.com/Kickstarter audio. That is crowdcrux.com/Kickstarter audio. Just go to that page, that link, and when you sign up for a free 30-day trial of Audible, you will also then get a free copy of the Kickstarter launch formula. And in addition, if you cancel your 30-day trial of Audible for whatever reason, you can still keep a copy of the Kickstarter launch formula. So it's like a win-win deal. Number one, you're getting access to the book, the Kickstarter launch formula, on Audible for free. And number two, if you want to, you can continue your education there with Audible. I love Audible. Like, I love podcasts. I love listening to educational content because it's almost like I'm downloading information to my head. I'm learning about different things that I never even would maybe chance upon if I was at a bookstore, and I discover all this kind of new education, information, and training. I read this one book, Moonwalking with Einstein, which is really interesting, talking about like how do you actually remember things over a long span of time? How do you remember large blocks of numbers? And it was kind of cool for me, doing things like making images in your mind in order to do that. It talks about a lot of really interesting techniques that some of these actual people out there who, for a living, they just memorize large numbers. They share with you their ways, their hacks, and their strategies for memorizing stuff. So like, you can discover all kind of interesting stuff if you're a nerd on Audible. So I hope that you like it, the Kickstarter launch formula. But again, my name is Salvador Briggman. Thank you for joining me. Hope you check out some of the other episodes and also leave me a positive review on iTunes. And I will see you next time.